In October of 1925, on a quiet border between Greece and Bulgaria, a man chased his dog across an invisible line. That's it. That's the story. Or so it should have been. Instead, it triggered a war. This is the true story of the War of the Stray Dog, a conflict that lasted only 10 days but still made the world stare, slack-jawed, wondering how in the name of barking nonsense an innocent pup almost launched a Balkan bloodbath. It's the mid-1920s. Europe is recovering from World War I, and the Balkans are, well, still the Balkans. Tense, mistrustful, always a couple of goat hoofs away from exploding. Greece and Bulgaria, in particular, are nursing fresh wounds from recent border conflicts, population swaps, and shifting alliances. Imagine two neighbors who once burned each other's houses down now living side by side, pretending everything's fine, but each one's got a match in their pocket. This little town, Petrich, was quiet. Too quiet. Tucked along the border with Greece, it was known for sheep, silence, and a hair-trigger sense of patriotism. And then the dog came. October 22nd, 1925. A Greek soldier is on patrol near the border. His dog, loyal but apparently untrained in international diplomacy, bolts across the invisible line into Bulgarian territory. The soldier, acting on instinct, or maybe just the deeply human urge not to lose a good boy, runs after him. Now this is where history goes from footnote to facepalm. Bulgarian guards spot the Greek soldier crossing into their land. They shout. The Greek doesn't stop. Shots are fired. In the confusion, one or two Greek soldiers end up dead. Just like that, a dog, and maybe some poor translation, has ignited a cross-border shootout. Back in Athens, news hits like a bombshell. Greek soldiers killed on Bulgarian soil. Greece doesn't hesitate. The army is mobilized. No drawn-out diplomacy. No ambassador shuffle. They go full drama mode. Within 48 hours, Greece invades Bulgaria. Yes, you heard right. One country invades another over a dog. World leaders had to double-check if this was an actual military campaign or the plot of a really weird children's book. This absurd little war spirals fast. Greek troops storm into Bulgarian villages. Civilians flee. Bulgaria, far smaller and less militarized, orders its forces not to fight back, but to file a complaint with the League of Nations. Because when a Greek general marches through your town shouting, "This is because of a dog," maybe it's time to let someone else handle the yelling. The League of Nations, still trying to prove it's not just a very fancy suggestion box, acts quickly. And, believe it or not, it works. They order Greece to withdraw. They investigate. And they fine Greece £45,000, a significant chunk of cash for 1925. The Greek military didn't just retaliate. They mobilized, dramatically. Thousands of troops, artillery, and machine gunners cross into Bulgaria like they're storming Normandy, except instead of Nazis, they're facing confused villagers and empty streets. Greece captures Petrich without significant resistance. Bulgarian soldiers, under strict orders, retreat. Their goal isn't a fight. It's to not give Greece a reason to escalate this already ridiculous standoff into a full-blown Balkan war. But Greece? They're still furious. Okay, let's pause. Why would Greece get so worked up over a dog? Well, surprise, it wasn't just about the dog. This was an era where national pride was everything. Greece had recently fought in the Greco-Turkish War and lost badly. They were embarrassed, licking their wounds, and desperate to prove strength. A border shooting gave them a chance to flex, even if the reason was fur-covered. It wasn't about the dog. It was about saving face. So what did Greece do? They issued an ultimatum to Bulgaria. Arrest the Bulgarian soldiers involved. Apologize officially. Pay reparations for the deaths. Do it in 48 hours or else. Now here's where Bulgaria plays 4D chess. Instead of posturing, they immediately send a letter to the League of Nations stating, "We don't want war. We want justice." This was a gutsy play. Bulgaria wasn't just trying to stop Greece. They were putting the international spotlight on the League itself. If the League failed here, its credibility would take another punch. Within 48 hours, the League assembles a crisis panel. They issue a formal demand. Greece must withdraw its troops immediately. Bulgaria will not be forced to apologize. Greece must pay £45,000 in damages. This was a diplomatic mic drop. Back in Greece, the mood is shifting. At first, the public cheered on their army. But once the international headlines hit, Greece invades over dog, league sides with Bulgaria, border bark turns to bite. It's humiliating. Nobody wants to be the guy who started a war over a Labrador, especially not on the front page of the Times. Greek leadership, sensing political fallout, agrees to withdraw. By November 2nd, the war is over. No one's sure what happened to the dog. Some say it returned home. Some say it was taken in by Bulgarian farmers. Others say it disappeared into history, tail wagging, unaware of the chaos it left behind. But what we do know is this: the War of the Stray Dog was one of the rare conflicts where a single soldier and his pup sparked an invasion a major power was forced to retreat, and the League of Nations actually worked. It was absurd. It was tragic. It was historic. And it taught the world something. Sometimes war doesn't need a reason, just a runaway dog and too much pride. When news broke that Greece had invaded Bulgaria over a dog, the world didn't react with fury. It reacted with confusion. Headline after headline framed the event somewhere between disbelief and satire. Tiny Balkan war sparked by dog Petrich panic. Greek army crosses border after canine chase. League of Nations settles dog war. Even in the chaotic aftermath of World War I, this felt surreal. But it also sparked real questions. If one dog could spark an invasion, what would a flock of pigeons do? The League of Nations, often dismissed as an international suggestion box, actually pulled off something rare: conflict resolution. They convened within days, took statements from both sides, sent a commission to the region, drafted a binding resolution, and got Greece to comply for once. The League had teeth. This one success gave them a PR win, boosting their credibility temporarily. But it also set a precedent. Wars could be stopped through pressure, not just firepower. As Greek soldiers pulled back and the dust settled in Petrich, locals began to piece their lives back together. No one in the village had asked to be invaded, and no one had wanted their streets to be a battleground. Oddly enough, Petrich gained a weird kind of fame. Journalists arrived. Politicians gave speeches. And that one bakery near the border started selling a loaf called war bread. You know your war was weird when it ends in souvenir snacks. Back in Athens, the fallout was serious. Greece's aggressive move had backfired. They lost international goodwill. They had to pay the fine. And worst of all, their enemies mocked them. Political opponents jumped on the opportunity. How can we govern a country that goes to war over a pet? Prime Minister Theodoros Pangalos, already seen as a militarist, faced scathing criticism. Though he didn't resign immediately, his reputation took a hit. 2 years later, he was overthrown in a bloodless coup. And yes, some historians do trace that fall back to the dog incident. So what happened to the hero or villain of our tale? No photo, no confirmed name, no memorial statue. But that little dog, chasing butterflies and not borders, reminds us that history isn't always written by the victors. Sometimes, it's written by the weirdest chain of events imaginable. Nearly a century later, the War of the Stray Dog is studied in military academies and diplomacy courses. Not because of how many were killed, but because of how close we came to something much worse, over something so small that it's a story of escalation, of pride, of how countries can lose control in the blink of an eye. And how one dog, unaware of politics or passports, ran straight into history. We laugh because it's absurd. We reflect because it's real. And we remember because it matters. Most people don't think about 1925. Even fewer think about the border between Greece and Bulgaria. But somewhere along those rocky hills, history was made by accident. No trenches, no tanks, just a forgotten fence and a few boundary stones. But under that soil is a story most nations would never believe. Let's zoom out. This war, tiny, comical, almost cartoonish, taught powerful lessons that modern nations still draw from. Small events can ignite massive consequences. A single border misunderstanding spiraled into a cross-border invasion. Pride escalates conflict. Greece couldn't back down without losing face. So they charged ahead blindly. Diplomacy matters. Bulgaria's appeal to the League of Nations saved lives. Their restraint, their letter writing, and their patience? It worked. Media changes perception. Once newspapers ran with the dog angle, Global sympathy leaned toward Bulgaria even before facts were fully known. Don't let your ego write checks your country can't cash. But let's ask the uncomfortable question. What if the league hadn't stepped in? What if Bulgaria had retaliated? What if neighboring nations joined the fray? In 1925, the Balkans were still a powder keg. The scars of World War I had barely healed. A larger war could have dragged in Serbia, Turkey, even Italy. And all over a dog. That's not fiction. That's history's knife edge. Beyond the borders and maps, this war, like any war, left its mark on people. The Greek soldier who lost his dog? His name was never recorded, but he died trying to retrieve it. The Bulgarian guard who fired? Likely following protocol, unaware he'd trigger an invasion. The villagers caught in the crossfire? Displaced, terrified, forgotten. It wasn't a joke to them. It was war. And that's the cruel irony. Even the smallest wars have real victims. Today, the war of the stray dog lives on not as a tragedy of scale, but a triumph of restraint. It's remembered not for how long it lasted, but how quickly it ended. Not because of bombs, but because people chose reason over rage. And in a world still filled with flashpoints and fury, it reminds us that even in our wildest moments, we can choose to de-escalate. The War of the Stray Dog 1925, 1 runaway dogs, 17 dead, 2 nations, 1 global lesson. Sometimes peace starts with knowing when not to chase.